Perhaps you're looking to make a purchase of a home, or you're looking to sell your home, but you're not quite sure which questions should I be asking my realtor. So today we created a video where we're talking about 5 questions that buyers and sellers should be asking their realtor.
I'm Reed Puser, and this is my business partner, Robin Gerlach. We're part of the Roots Home Sales team, and we love helping people just like you relocate to Denver and make sure that their move is smooth and efficient.
And if this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and subscribe and tap the bell so you're notified every time we put one of these videos out. Let's go ahead and get into it. You know the insurance one better. How about you do insurance?
What kind of insurance do I need?
Yeah.
You're gonna do the title policy?
I guess. Not that I want to.
Okay, ask.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna start with our top 5 questions that home buyers should be asking. So number 1, Reed, what kind of insurance do I need as a home buyer?
That's a great question, Robin. And honestly, that is a question that usually we don't get until a little bit later in the contract process. And I honestly think that it should be something that will be one of the first considerations when you're looking to purchase a home. The great news for you is there is a date and deadline in the contract to protect you in order to make sure that you're able to get an insurance quote that's acceptable to you and that will cover everything that you need it to cover. So that's the first thing to note, that there is a protection in the contract for that. In terms of the actual policy, of course, you're going to want to get with a local insurance broker. There's a lot of, very locality based factors to insurance. And we want to make sure that you have somebody that's working in this local area who knows the marketplace and they are able to serve you. And then you'll talk to them about the policy itself, but there's a lot of different things that you want to look at. You want to make sure that you've got a deductible that is acceptable to you, of course. Here in Colorado, one of the biggest culprits of insurance claims is hail. We get a lot of severe thunderstorms that roll over the mountains from the west to the east, and we get a lot of hail because of that. So you're going to want to make sure that you're comfortable with your deductible, and that if you do have a hailstorm, you're okay paying that deductible to get it replaced. The other thing that you really need to consider and consult with your insurance agent on is your cost replacement value, right? So basically what you're looking at is like, okay, if the worst thing happened and there was a fire that came through and it destroyed my house, what is the amount of my house that's covered for a rebuild? Of course, construction costs have been going up and up and up over the last 10 years. So making sure that they're up to the most recent trends on cost per square foot for your replacement cost of your home is another important factor of insurance. And not to get long-winded, but the last thing is if you're having a condo or an attached dwelling, it's going to be a different insurance policy than if you have a detached single-family home, simply because on a condo, you may not be responsible for like the exterior maintenance, the roof, etc. Your responsibility would be the walls in. And those are some thoughts about insurance.
Yeah, to add on to that real quick, Reed, I think a lot of homeowners here in the Denver metro area, more so in Louisville, found out the hard way that they weren't adequately insured in the fires of 2021. December 2021 had a massive fire that blew in, right through one section of Louisville where about 400 homes were lost. And a lot of those homeowners were very disappointed to find out that they didn't have adequate replacement coverage on their home. So that's a good one.
So definitely something to think about. Insurance is not something to ignore. It is something to apply yourself and to find a great insurance agent. We've got some awesome contacts if you want to talk with anybody. All right, so Robin, I've got a question for you now.
Yep.
Can you tell the people about what a title policy is?
Yes. I mean, as much as I can. I'm not a title expert, but I am a realtor. And yes, the title insurance policy is something that needs to convey with the property that you're purchasing. So much like Reed mentioned, you have a contingency as a home buyer in the contract for making sure you get adequate insurance for that property. The same thing applies for title. You as a home buyer, you're going to get a chance to review what's called the title commitment. That is provided by the title insurance company. Title insurance exists for you as the homeowner to not have anybody, any past owners, for example, come and claim some ownership of that property. Say a cousin said that, from 1991 sale, came back and said, I never agreed to sell this property, I still own this property. That, for things like that, that's why title insurance exists. Other things, when folks put a lien on the home, say you hired an HVAC contractor to replace your furnace and you never fully paid them, or the seller never fully paid them, that HVAC contractor can put a lien on the property, and you as the home buyer, obviously you don't want to inherit that lien. So what the title insurance will do, the title company will make sure that the seller comes full with that amount and pays it out of their proceeds in order for them to convey clear title to you as the home buyer. It's important to make sure that you review the title commitment in the contract process, because there are requirements that need to be met in order for the title insurance policy to go to the buyer. And there are also exceptions. And you as the buyer, you want to review what are the exceptions in this title insurance policy. What are they not covering in this? And a lot of time it's like utility agreements that have been established 15, 20, 30 years ago. But if there's anything within the last 5 to 10 years, you want to make sure you understand what that exception is on the title insurance policy and talk to the title company before you go ahead and close on that home. So one other thing you want to get with the title insurance policy is owner's extended coverage. So that ensures against anything that is unrecorded, like if a mechanic forgot to record the lien on the property, but they do it later, that owner's extended coverage will cover you as the home buyer from that unrecorded mechanic's lien, as an example.
So, excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for the quick synopsis of title insurance.
I tried. Go ahead.
There's a lot of sections in our contract here in Colorado that discusses these specific provisions of the contract and the contingencies that you have available to you to make sure that this property checks out at your subjective discretion. And title's included in that, insurance is included in that, as well as other things like inspection and appraisal.
Perfect. So let's go ahead and jump into question number 3. We're going to go over to our question board here. And let's see, Reed, what's negotiable in a real estate contract for a home buyer?
Oh man, we've had 2 really long-winded answers, so this one's going to be very simple.
Perfect.
It's everything. Everything truly is negotiable in a real estate deal. Contract is written in a boilerplate template here in the state of Colorado. Then that's the contract that everybody uses to transfer real estate. But there are plenty of sections in which we make that applicable to that person's negotiation, that person's transaction. So really everything is negotiable. So we're not just talking about price, but we're talking about terms. We're talking about dates and deadlines. We're talking about who's paying administrative fees if there's an HOA involved. So there's a lot of different things that are negotiable. In fact, I think there's over 20 things in the real estate contract that we will be negotiating on your behalf for.
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. I mean, and title insurance, it's pretty common here in Colorado, going back to question number 2, that the seller pays for the title insurance policy, but the seller can ask the buyer to pay for the title insurance policy. And to give you an example, a typical title insurance policy for median home sale in Denver is probably around $2,000. So, I mean, that's a substantial amount of money that a seller could be asking a buyer to pay for if they have enough leverage. That's just one example.
All right, so next question for you, Robin. I'm a buyer, and I'm not, familiar with Denver yet. A little bit, but not a ton. How can I make sure that the price of this house that I'm interested in is fair?
That's a good question. So obviously, you as the home buyer, you never want to overpay for a house unless you're certain that there's going to be massive amount of upward appreciation in the years to follow, like we saw in the last few years. We're not so certain of that anymore. So obviously you want to hire a skilled buyer's agent, realtor that understands the local market, not just the whole Denver metro area, but the micro market where you're buying. Because we have the macro market and we have micro markets. Some areas are, more of a buyer's market. Some areas are more of a seller's market. So you want your buyer's agent to be able to run a property analysis. That's one of the things that we do for our buyers is, great, you like this property, you want to go for it. What we do is a property analysis where we do a comparative market analysis, and we take the 4 or 5 most recent comparable homes sold in that neighborhood. We then compare them and we make value adjustments for factors such as interior square footage, lot size, condition of the home, when did that comparable home sold? What was the market like then? And we make a time value adjustment. For example, if they sold when the market was 5% higher, we'll tend to make a 5% adjustment now that the market is slower. We add all those up into like an algorithm that then spits out a value range, an average adjusted value for this home. And it's typically a range of say 5 to 10,000. And we will make those adjustments based on what a lot of appraisers make adjustments on. For example, between $85 to $100 a square foot on above grade square footage. We review a lot of appraisals for our buyers to understand how appraisers are valuing these homes. And then we try to get in the mind of what is the appraiser going to value this home for? Because when you're making an offer on it, we don't want you paying more than your bank or the appraiser is going to value it for. Okay, so we'll try to give you a good idea up front before you even write the offer where we think the value of this home is. Then, as part of your contract, if you're getting financing, your lender is most likely going to hire an appraiser. If you're putting less than 20 or 25% down, they're going to hire an appraiser to go out there and do an assessment or an evaluation of the value of that property. So if you offer $550,000 on a property and you go under contract with the seller, the appraiser goes out and they give an appraised value of $540,000, then you now can negotiate with the seller and say, we want you to bring this price down to $540 because that's what it's getting appraised at, and this is part of our loan condition. This is how we're going to get approved for our loan. So you do have negotiation ability with the seller once under contract if the appraiser deems that the value is less than what you've offered, unless you've offered appraisal gap coverage, which tends to happen when the market's very competitive and you're bidding the price up. A home seller is going to want to know that you're willing to offer some gap that will fulfill that shortfall. If you offered $550 and it appraises at $525, the seller wants to know how much of that you're going to cover up front before they even accept your offer. So you have a good buyer's agent, and then you're going to have your bank hiring an appraiser to make sure that what you're paying for is good market value.
Cool. So essentially, is it right that we have 2 different layers of protection for that valuation?
That's a good way to put it. Yes.
You being the first one, or me,
Yep.
And then the second one being the appraiser themselves?
100%. Yep. So make sure you have a good buyer's agent who's going to do a property analysis for you before you even write that offer, so you know you're getting good value.
Yep. Perfect.
When should I start planning my purchase?
I love this one because, this really gets into a lot of, the fundamentals of our business, which is based on a lot of dates and deadlines. Our whole contract is based on dates and deadlines and being able to deliver and perform within those deadlines. So, this is going to be different for everybody, truly. I've worked with some clients who are like the ultimate planners, and they literally have been looking at homes on Zillow and on the searches that I've set up for them for like over a year. I think that that's great. I think that real estate is a game that you need to prepare for. It is a process, and it is something that is, probably the biggest purchase that you ever make in your lives, or the biggest sale in your lives. So, I have some people that are planning a year out, right? I have other clients who are not really able to plan that far out. Maybe they just got a job change, or they've been relocated for some other reason, and they need to get it snappy. So with those people, we're able to snap into action, put a plan into, essentially 45 days is probably about the closest, time that I've received a call from somebody that needed to purchase, and then we closed 45 days later. Obviously, we condense a lot of our strategy and our, front talks to make sure that we're very efficient with the timing. And, so I think that you could plan anywhere from a year in advance of your purchase, all the way down to a couple months in advance of your purchase. The key point being is you need to plug in to some agents that have done this for a long time. They have a proven process that they've done over and over and over again. It's a well-oiled machine, and then they make this applicable to you and your situation. So the system already exists. It's just a matter of making that tailored to your individual needs. So this next question is one that I've actually received quite a few times. So I figured it was worthwhile asking. I'm a seller now, right? So these are some questions for sellers. And I'm curious, like I've got a mortgage on the house. how does that get paid off? Do I have to like get that paid off to the mortgage servicer, or does title take care of that? What could I expect?
Good question. Yeah. So when you're selling a house, you go under contract with the buyer and you are hiring a title company to not only provide the title insurance policy for the buyer, unless the buyer hires it and they're paying for it. Either way, the title company will take care of dispersing those funds at closing to your mortgage servicing company. So whoever your mortgage company is, what the title company is going to do is they're going to send you a payoff authorization form during the process. So you're going to have to fill out mortgage company, mortgage number, what the current mortgage balance is. The title company then sends that to your bank or your mortgage company to confirm that what the payoff amount is. Now, it's important to know that sometimes the payoff amount that the mortgage company gives to the title company is not updated. They didn't, for example, account for this most recent month of payment that you paid into it. So don't worry about that. You are going to get that reimbursed. For example, if you paid $2,000 a month, into the mortgage this month, and that's not reflecting on the payoff amount that was given to the title company, after closing, you'll get a check, usually within 30 to 45 days, to your forwarding address or wherever you are moving to. The title company is going to ask you at closing, where can we send you any checks for any overages that we need to reimburse you? So you want to make sure you give the proper address, and you will get reimbursed for that month that you paid. So you will come to zero. So the title company will take care of it for you. And that's a great question.
Cool. So title company takes care of settlement
Correct.
throughout the process, right?
Yep. So any funds that are crossing paths from buyer to seller for earnest money, for example, they get held at the title company in an escrow account. And then all of that money comes from the buyer and the buyer's lender. If they're financing, and it gets held at the title company goes through all the settlement fees that need to be paid by the buyer and the seller, and make sure that everyone is paid out. Real estate, the taxes are paid, all of that good stuff, HOA, insurance premiums, whatever it is. Then the title company disperses that payoff amount to your mortgage company.
Cool.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get into the next one as what a seller should know. So what should I do to prepare my home for sale?
So this is a question that I'm going to cover in two different steps. The first step is, what are the things that everybody should do, right, regardless of your situation? And then the second is more nuanced, and that is, what are the steps I should do for my individual home, right? Because every home is different. Every buyer pool for that home is different. So when you work with myself and Robin and us at the Roots Home Sales team, we take a tailored approach to giving you advice on how to properly prepare your house for sale, by giving suggestions that make sense on a ROI basis, a return on investment basis. So let's start with part one. What should everybody do? These are simple things. Decluttering, right? You never sell a house the way you live in a house. So you want to be able to declutter a lot of your personal possessions, tchotchkes, furniture, all those kinds of things, so that when that buyer walks in through the door, they can view and envision themselves in that house, rather than saying, oh, this is Bob and Susan's house, right? So that's a big one. That includes depersonalization as well as decluttering. Next one, curb appeal. So you really want to try to sell your house when your outdoor spaces look the best. We love to sell houses in the spring and summer and fall here in the Denver metro area. So curb appeal is a big difference for people as they pull up to your house. Things like painting your front door can oftentimes make a lot of good sense. Things like replacing your doormat with a new one, having some flowers in the front of the house. All of those things add to the ambiance and the feel that people get when they enter your house. In terms of things that everybody should do, a very thorough cleaning is always a good thing to do when you list your house. You want people to feel like it's very clean and crisp. You don't want to have any kind of issues with, deferred cleaning needs when you're showing a house. Another thing that goes along with cleaning is making sure there's no smells in your house. That could be pet odor, that could be Glade plugins, That could be, you love to cook Indian food and you cook Indian food on Friday nights. You want to probably not do that for the showings on Saturday. Those are all things that are going to have to do with the perception of the house that the public and the buyers have. So we will make sure that it's very clean and pristine, and that goes for the smell as well.
I might buy that house if it has the smell of curry, though. I'll pay double. I'm just kidding.
So Robin wants the curry food. I'm gonna think about that next time I list a house. Only if you're in the
Only
market.
for me, yes.
Only if you're in the market, though. If you're not in the market, the
Nice.
Indian food smells out.
Yes, that's
So now let me switch a little bit to more particulars. There are a number of things that typically can make sense return on investment for upgrades to your house. And this is something that we have a ton of experience in. Both Robin, myself, my wife Elizabeth, Travis, Dale, everybody on our team, they've done a lot of work on renovations and strategic fix-ups for listing the property specifically. Low-hanging fruit for these things are typically things like, flooring, right? If your flooring is really worn, you probably need to get that replaced. We've got some great vendors that we work with. Painting, same thing. Paint is low-hanging fruit. We want to make sure that paint looks fresh and clean and crisp. Other things that we've done in the past are things like replacing countertops, right? Painting existing vanities a solid color to modernize them, and then replacing the old laminate countertop with like a quartz countertop. Replacing some of the pulls and handles and hardware on your doors and your cabinet doors, also your sinks and faucets. If you've got a bunch of old brass finished, faucets and handles and such, it could be very easy to update and modernize your house with not a lot of investment to just replace those. So at the end of the day, we love this question and we love putting our systems into place for you and making them applicable to you. So we would love to receive a call from you and set a time to come and see your house and give you specific recommendations that we think would really move the needle for your price point. Alrighty, so Robin, I know that buying a house isn't like buying a bicycle. It seems to be a process. So as a seller, or when you're talking to your seller clients, how long do you tell them to start preparing?
That's a really good question. And I think it also goes hand in hand with the answer that you had for the last question of, what upgrades should I make? So it really depends on the condition of your current home, how much work you're willing to do, and how realistic you are about the price you're going to get for the condition of your home. If you have all original windows, countertops and flooring from the 1980s in your home, you want to make sure that your realtor is being honest with you and telling you, hey, this is probably what the market is going to pay for it, unless you want to make these upgrades. The more upgrades you have to make, the longer ahead you want to start planning. I think it's always good to reach out to us a year in advance. If you're just starting to think, you know what, we might want to make a move around this time next year, that's the time you want to go ahead and reach out to us as your realtors so we can put a plan together. Obviously, you can always go ahead and sell your property as is, but just know you're going to get probably investors who are looking for a really good deal so they can go in and flip it. So you're not always going to get the price that you want if you're going to sell it as is. Now, if you're willing to put some work into your property, you're willing to make the upgrades that we're recommending for you, it's good to have that year ahead of planning period. Because for example, if you have to replace all those windows in your house to get top of the market value, ordering windows and having them replaced, that can take up to 3 to 4 months, for example. Getting new appliances can take 2 to 3 months, for example. So any kind of upgrade that you're gonna do in your house with a good return on investment mindset for it can take up to several months to see that come into fruition. So I think up to a year, if you know you want to make upgrades in your home to bring it to kind of top of the market, because today's home buyers in our market are willing to pay a premium for that turnkey home. Gone are the days where you're seeing a lot of home buyers willing to go in and DIY or turn this house in and put some sweat equity into it. Today's home buyers don't really want that. They are willing to pay a premium for turnkey homes. And so if you're willing to get your home into turnkey shape, it's good to start planning ahead, I would say about a year in advance. Yeah.
Excellent.
So let's jump to our next one. All right, Reed, do I, as the seller, selling my house. I've heard about this title insurance you guys are talking about. Do I have to pay for the title insurance policy?
That's a great question. And I think that parlays directly into a question that we covered earlier, which is what's negotiable in a contract? The title insurance policy is customarily paid for by the seller. And when I talk about the title insurance policy, I'm generalizing, I guess. There's two different policies typically on a purchase. There's the seller's or the owner's title policy. That's the one I'm talking about particularly now. And then there's the lender's title policy, which is typically a buyer cost. But in terms of the seller, the owner title policy, that's usually a seller cost, and it is negotiable. So, negotiation is all about leverage or perceived leverage. And if we have a situation in which, we have a very high in demand listing, we've been able to market it that and get a lot of interest from multiple buyers in a short amount of time. Therefore, we have multiple offers on the place. In those circumstances, sometimes we can press the issue a little bit more and ask those buyers to pay for that owner's title policy, because we have the leverage and the interest to, potentially play the game of, okay, well, let's go and ask them if they'll do this. And if they won't, we have another offer that's almost equally as good and we can ask them, and so on and so forth. So typically it is paid for by you, the owner, the seller, but everything is negotiable. All right, Robin. So last question that I wanted to ask you is one that has been in the news a lot lately. And that is the subject of commissions, buyer agency commissions specifically. And just for a little bit of background, there was a lawsuit that was filed in 2019 against NAR and some of the other big brokerages. Essentially in that lawsuit, the sellers said that they shouldn't have to pay for buyers' agents to be compensated to bring buyers to their homes. They felt that the buyers' agents are working in opposition to their interests, and therefore it doesn't make sense for them to pay them a commission. So I've had this question come up a couple times, and let's pretend that we're sitting at a table and I want to sell my house. Robin, do I need to pay a buyer's agent commission?
Absolutely, you don't have to. Everything's negotiable, like Reed said in our prior question. You don't have to pay your buyer's agent, like you don't have to pay a listing agent. You can for sell by owner. You can put this on the market yourself, hire the title company, hire an attorney to review all the documents if you want to go that route. Just know that if you don't want to pay a buyer's agent, the exposure on your property is likely to be less. Because why? Home buyers today are looking at a market where they really aren't sure how to navigate it, especially first-time home buyers or move-up home buyers. The real estate purchase contract changes yearly, and now it's a 25-page contract here in the state of Colorado. And with that contract opens up a lot of areas of liability. Now, you as a home seller, you need to think about seriously, do I want to share this liability with anybody? For example, if you have an unrepresented buyer come to the open house and they want to buy it without a buyer's agent, great. You're going to save maybe 2.5% to 3% of a buyer's agent commission. However, the flip side to that is you have a buyer who's not represented and they're navigating solo and they're kind of relying on you and your agent, the listing agent, to shake them a fair deal here. And anything that they discover after the sale, all that liability is going to be on you. Who are they going to go to? They're not going to go to their buyer's agent because they didn't have one, right? So me as a listing agent and us, I think, you're probably the same, Reed. Like if we're talking to the home sellers, we want to share that liability. I would 10 times rather work with a buyer who's represented by a buyer's agent, because that buyer's agent will walk them through the process of getting the home inspection, reviewing the title commitment, going over the seller's property disclosure that we're going to provide for them, doing all their due diligence so they are confident when they go to close on that home, even if we have to pay that 2.5%, 3% commission to a buyer's agent. I think that peace of mind that allows you to sleep at night after the deal is closed is well worth it, because there are a lot of litigation and lawsuits in real estate. And when you're talking $600,000 to $1 million transactions, that's a lot of money that can get added up into a lawsuit. And most of the litigation that's happening in lawsuits that are happening in real estate are from dual agency, where there's one agent representing both parties. Don't know how that works. It doesn't happen here in Colorado. We don't have dual agency. You either represent buyer or seller, or you're a neutral party called a transaction broker, or they happen with unrepresented buyers. So it's always better in today's market with a 25-page contract to have a buyer who's educated and knows what they're getting into, because if not, that liability is all on you, Mr. or Mrs. Seller and listing agent. So I would say, no, you don't have to pay any buyer's agent, but there's a risk. Just like anything, you get what you pay for, right? So there is a risk without having proper professional representation on both sides of a real estate transaction that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So
that's great. I love where you went with that in terms of talking about the liability side of things. My mind immediately went to the financial side of things too, which I think is another side of this coin too. So when I'm sitting with a seller and we're discussing their goals, and they ask me whether they need to pay a buyer's agent or offer buyer agency compensation, the answer is no, you don't need to do that. You have a choice to do that on whether you would like to or not. And ultimately, for most of my sellers, the number that is most important to them is the net figure, the figure they'll receive after everything is said and done on the settlement statement, rather than just the purchase price, because there's a lot of other factors that we went into that will result in you taking home a smaller or larger amount after the closing's done. So when I'm sitting with my sellers, oftentimes the question becomes this. Okay, if Mr. Seller, if you have a choice to, offer a 2.5% or a 2.8% co-op to the buyer's broker, and therefore essentially employ 25,000 licensees here in the Denver metro area to go out there and sell your home, to promote and sell your home, I think that we do better on a net basis when the day is all done by exposing your home to that many people and paying that 2.5% or that 2.8%. I think we get more than 2.8 or 2.5% on your sale and your net price at the end of the day. However, we've got a lot of different options here working with the Roots Home Sales team. We've been dynamic and flexible in regards to these changes in our marketplace, and we've done a lot in regards to being able to market direct to unrepresented buyers to attract them to your listing with customized, compelling video and get them to your listing, and even if you're not willing to pay a co-op commission. So there's a lot of different ways to be successful in this market, as long as you are talking with the right agent and getting the right options presented to you so that you can make an educated decision. We hope that you got some valuable information in this quick discussion about, what are some things that buyers and sellers don't know, but they should be asking. And, working here in the Denver metro area for the last 15 years, we've helped a ton of clients. We'd love to help you. So remember, reach out to us. We're here at your disposal for you to be able to plug into us for our local expertise, our industry expertise, and to really get what you were looking for in your contract.